At her own birthday dinner, Evelyn Carter heard it clearly. "She's just a burden we feed out of guilt," her daughter-in-law smirked. Evelyn didn't flinch. She stood, smiled, and slid an envelope across the table. Not a card. Not a thank you. The house sale contract. Finalized. By the end of the week, they'd be packing boxes in a home that no longer knew their names. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. The dining room glowed with the warm light of Edison bulbs, flickering gently above the reclaimed wood table Ashley had insisted was chic farmhouse, even though it looked more catalog than cozy. 12 places were set with precision, cloth napkins folded like fans, water glasses already sweating. A cake sat untouched at the end of the table, store-bought, though no one mentioned it. Evelyn sat between her granddaughter Jenna and a vase of artificially perfect tulips. 68 today, retired. A nurse for 39 years, a mother for 43. Now mostly just a presence in other people's homes. Ashley stood with her wine glass raised, all smiles and gloss, lipstick too red for comfort, teeth too white to trust. "Let's all raise a glass," Ashley said, her voice syrupy sweet with a hint of steel underneath, "to Evelyn for being, well, resilient." Everyone chuckled politely. Evelyn raised her glass, nodded once. She could feel the coming sting. Ashley wasn't the type to waste a spotlight. "I mean, it takes a strong woman," Ashley continued, pausing for effect, "to outlive 2 parents, a husband, a few cats, and still land squarely in our guest room for her golden years." The room stilled for a beat. Jenna looked down. Ryan scratched his beard, half smiling like he wasn't sure if this was funny or dangerous. Ashley went on, eyes gleaming. "We joke, of course. You know we love having you, even if our water bill says otherwise." Laughter this time, louder, nervous. Ashley took a sip of her wine and beamed like she'd won something. Evelyn's fingers curled around the base of her glass, her jaw tense so slightly it almost didn't register, except to her. She smiled. "That was very funny, Ashley," Evelyn said, her voice even and dry as linen. Ashley shrugged. "I mean, what's family for if not roasting each other, right?" Ryan reached over and gave Evelyn's hand a perfunctory squeeze. "Come on, Mom. You know Ash is just playing." The way he said playing, as if Evelyn didn't understand humor, as if she hadn't learned long ago to turn barbs into bandages, to swallow indignities with a nurse's grace. "Oh, I know," Evelyn said. She pushed her chair back carefully. "Excuse me, I think I left my reading glasses upstairs." "But we haven't cut the cake," Jenna said, frowning. "I'll be right back," Evelyn lied. She walked with practiced ease, not hurried, not rattled. Her steps silent on the hardwood stairs, like muscle memory from years of night shifts. Upstairs, the guest room still smelled faintly of her lavender soap. A stack of folded towels sat on the end of the twin bed. Her contribution, never requested but always appreciated. She closed the door and leaned against it, her smile gone now, evaporated into the cool hush of the hallway behind her. Her chest tightened, not with sadness exactly, but something older, heavier, familiar. That particular burn of being tolerated instead of treasured. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded on her lap, and stared at the pale blue walls. There was no photo of her here, no framed memory, just beige decor and a closet half filled with Ashley's out-of-season coats. Downstairs, laughter resumed. She could hear Ashley telling someone about the cruise they were planning, how tight finances might delay it, especially with the utilities being what they are. Evelyn looked at the bookshelf beside her. A single dusty copy of Better Homes and Gardens sat crookedly next to a scented candle labeled, "Bless This Nest." Her lips twitched. She stood, walked to her suitcase in the closet, and slowly unzipped it. There, beneath a soft navy sweater, was a folder, slightly worn at the edges. She pulled it out. The word "deed" was handwritten on the front in neat, slanted cursive. She traced the letters with her finger, then closed it and slipped it back under the sweater. Tonight was not about confrontation. Not yet. But things were about to shift. And next time Ashley raised a glass in her honor, Evelyn promised herself she'd be nowhere near the table. The door clicked shut behind her for the second time that evening. Evelyn didn't turn on the light. She didn't need to. The moon poured through the window just enough to sketch soft outlines of her folded towels, the corner chair, the edge of the old suitcase still unzipped. She sat on the bed and exhaled slowly, pressing her palm to her chest. It was the same gesture she used when calming patients down after a panic episode. Funny how muscle memory clung even when the world changed its shape. The laughter downstairs shifted again, not loud but consistent, familiar. Ashley's voice cut through every few minutes, bright and boastful, as though Evelyn had already ceased to exist the moment she left the table. She stood and walked to the small desk by the window. A folding chair, her laptop, a legal pad. She clicked open the laptop, waiting for it to hum to life. The home screen blinked awake. A folder labeled House Documents sat in the corner, untouched since the pandemic. Evelyn opened it, double-clicked the scan marked Final Deed. The PDF loaded slowly. The Wi-Fi was always a bit sluggish upstairs, like everything else Ashley didn't prioritize. There it was. Her name. Alone. Evelyn Grace Carter. Sole owner. She stared at the line for a long moment, her eyes not just reading it, but remembering it. The lawyer's office. The pen she had to click twice before it worked. The feel of the contract under her hand. She had never removed Ryan's name because he'd never been on it in the first place. 7 years ago, it had felt like love, or maybe obligation dressed up as love, when she'd offered her son shelter. He had just been laid off from his IT job. His face, defeated and flushed, had crumpled over her kitchen counter while Ashley rubbed his back and said, "It'll just be a couple months, tops." A couple months had become nearly a decade. In the beginning, she'd stocked the fridge, paid half the utilities, folded towels like she still worked the surgical floor, crisp edges, fresh scent. Slowly, that balance eroded. Her contributions became expectations, then footnotes, then burdens. She opened another folder. Financials. Her bank accounts, once full of slow-earned savings, had dwindled. Co-signed loans, paid cell plans, groceries, a new HVAC system. They couldn't swing right now. She began typing, "Call Edward at Harbor Trust, confirm trust options, schedule meeting with Linda Ari, will check storage unit availability, climate-controlled transfer fidelity account to separate login." She stared at the list. Her hands, though veined and lined, still moved with the kind of precision 30 years of hospital work demanded. The door rattled faintly, footsteps outside. Then Ashley's voice floated up, laughing mid-sentence. "And if she thinks living here is expensive, wait till she sees what a one-bedroom goes for." Laughter. Ryan's this time. Evelyn's fingers stilled. She closed the laptop gently, like tucking in a sleeping child. No need to rush, no need to signal. She stood and pulled open the closet. Behind her suitcase, hidden beneath a hanging robe, sat a narrow accordion folder. She set it on the bed. Years of documentation. Paperwork she'd kept out of habit. Now it was ammunition. She flipped through it slowly. Her retirement account statement, the reverse mortgage flyer Ashley had slipped into her mail by accident last year, her husband's military pension payout. No one knew what she had. No one had asked. A car door slammed in the distance. Someone leaving early, perhaps. Evelyn checked the clock. 9:46 p.m. She made a mental note to call the attorney tomorrow, early, before coffee. Then she slipped the folder back into the suitcase, zipped it shut. She pulled the blinds, shut the closet, and finally turned on the bedside lamp, a soft golden glow that didn't pretend to be cheerful. From the hallway came a knock. "Mom?" Ryan's voice uncertain. "You okay?" She cleared her throat. "Just tired. You coming down for cake?" "I already had mine." There was a pause. "Okay then." His footsteps faded. Evelyn lay back, fully dressed, on the made bed. Her eyes stared at the ceiling, but her mind moved, sharp, efficient, and so very clear. They had mistaken her silence for weakness. They would not make that mistake again. By morning, Evelyn had convinced herself that someone would say something, not a grand apology. She wasn't foolish enough to expect that, but a quiet aside, a muttered regret. Maybe Ryan would catch her eye over breakfast and say, "Ashley went too far." Maybe Ashley would leave a note. She liked writing lists. A note wasn't impossible. But the only sound Evelyn heard was the whir of the blender. Protein powder and oat milk, Ashley's daily ritual. She stepped lightly down the stairs. The kitchen was filled with natural light, too bright for how raw she felt. "Morning?" Ashley chirped. She was already in yoga leggings, barefoot, sipping from her Stanley tumbler. Ryan sat at the counter, scrolling through his phone like the world depended on his thumbs. "Hey, Mom." "Good morning," Evelyn said, forcing civility into her tone like a nurse during visiting hours. She poured herself a cup of coffee. No one asked how she'd slept. Ashley leaned against the counter, stretching lazily. "So, I was thinking, after Jenna leaves for camp, we could finally set up that home gym in the guest room." Evelyn's hand paused mid-pour. Ryan nodded absently. "Yeah, we've been talking about that forever." "Peloton would fit in the corner," Ashley said. "And with the new mirror, maybe even install one of those infrared panels." Evelyn stirred her coffee in slow circles, the clink of the spoon unnaturally loud. She said nothing. Ashley reached for her phone. "And we could finally declutter the garage while we're at it. Your mom started already, didn't she?" she asked Ryan, glancing at Evelyn. "I saw a few boxes down there." Evelyn smiled faintly. "I like to keep things tidy." Ashley didn't catch the edge in her voice, or chose not to. By late afternoon, Evelyn was in the garage. The air was heavy with dust and sun-warmed cardboard. She opened one of the old banker's boxes and pulled out a faded quilt, the one her own mother had sewn when Ryan was born. It still smelled faintly of cedar and old milk. She folded it carefully, slid it into a trunk labeled Keep. Each item she touched seemed to whisper, "They forgot. You remembered." By the time the sun had shifted, Evelyn had 5 piles. She kept a small notepad open beside her with short scribbles: donate, storage, legal, personal, goodbye. The legal pile was growing. Inside, she washed her hands slowly, dried them, then picked up her phone and dialed. "Linda Reyes," came the familiar voice. "Linda, it's Evelyn Carter." There was a pause, then warmth. "Ev, been too long. I need to update my will. It can't wait." There was a rustle of papers on the other end. "You're still listed with Ryan as trustee, correct?" "Not anymore." Another pause. "Understood. And I want a new power of attorney, someone neutral, no family." "We can do that. I'll send the forms to your email tonight. But Evelyn, is something happening?" Evelyn's voice stayed calm, even as her chest swelled with something equal parts grief and resolve. "I'm not sure what's happening yet, Linda," she said, "but I know I need to be ready for it." The line went quiet for a beat. Then Linda's voice returned, lower. "You want to consider transferring the house into a trust now? Revocable or sealed?" "Sealed," Evelyn said. "Make it airtight." "Done." They hung up with promises to finalize everything within days. Efficient, legal armor, the kind Evelyn had spent a lifetime never needing, until now. That night, Evelyn sat on the edge of her bed again, same folded towels, same candle she never lit. Down the hall, Jenna practiced piano, soft scales, careful fingers. Then Ashley's voice filtered in. "She's been moody all day. I don't know, maybe she didn't like the toast." Ryan's reply was muffled, then laughter. The same kind from her birthday. Evelyn didn't flinch this time. She opened the drawer beside her bed, pulled out the manila envelope Linda had overnighted. She placed her signature on the first page, a slow, deliberate stroke. Then she capped the pen and started reading the next form. Ashley noticed the change before Ryan did. That's how she operated, finely tuned to control, allergic to uncertainty. It was little things at first: Evelyn's car keys missing from the hook by the door, the faint smell of shredded paper in the trash, not bills, but thicker, glossier, aged. The living room cabinet that used to house dusty photo albums now sat conspicuously empty. One evening, as Ashley folded laundry with the aggressive energy of someone trying to feel productive, she said casually, "I think your mom's up to something." Ryan looked up from the couch, distracted by the flickering light of ESPN. She's just cleaning out junk. Probably nesting or something. Nesting? Ashley blinked. He shrugged. People her age get like that. Sentimental. Ashley's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. She was already making a list in her mind. Passwords she needed to check, drawers she hadn't peeked into in a while. Upstairs, Evelyn sat at her desk in a pool of late-afternoon sunlight. Her bank's secure site blinked open on her laptop. She moved methodically, transferring the balance from her secondary checking account, a modest sum she'd stashed over years of skipped dinners out and off-brand groceries, into a private trust. The name of the account flickered across the screen. Stone Pine Revocable Living Trust. She smiled faintly at the name. The stone pines had grown behind her childhood home, stubborn and unbending. She opened her email, attached the latest version of her will, and typed, "Linda, please consider this version final. Effective immediately. Warmly, Evelyn G. Carter." She hit send. Then she stood, walked to the closet, and pulled down a box labeled albums. Inside were photographs she hadn't looked at in years. Her wedding, Ryan's elementary school portraits, hospital Polaroids taken during night shifts. She flipped through them slowly, like handling artifacts from someone else's life. She kept 5. The rest went into the shredder. The sound was clean, final. The next day, a woman named Diane arrived at the front door. Tall, mid-40s, with dark red glasses and sneakers that didn't match her blazer. Evelyn greeted her warmly, her voice just loud enough to carry down the hallway. "So good to see you again. Come in." Ashley looked up from her laptop in the dining room, frowning slightly. "Friend of yours?" "Yes," Evelyn said. "Old friend from the hospital." Diane offered a friendly wave but didn't linger. She followed Evelyn through the living room, down the hallway, and out to the backyard. They strolled slowly, paused, pointed. Evelyn handed Diane a slip of paper before they returned inside. Ashley watched the whole thing from behind her screen, jaw tight. That night, she waited until Ryan was in the shower before quietly opening the door to Evelyn's room. Nothing was obviously out of place. That was the unsettling part. The neatness had intention. She checked the closet, pulled down a black plastic filing case and opened it. The label slapped her like cold water. Transition. Inside, property tax receipts, utility bills, title insurance, a copy of the Stone Pine Trust Declaration. Ashley flipped faster, panic blooming under her collarbone. A yellow post-it was stuck to the corner of one page, to be shredded after closing. She dropped the file like it had burned her. The next morning, she cornered Ryan in the kitchen. "Did your mom ever put your name on the deed?" He blinked at her. "What?" "The house, Ryan. I think so. We moved in, didn't we?" Ashley stared at him like he was speaking a dead language. "Think or no?" Ryan's silence was answer enough. She swore under her breath and stormed out of the room, leaving Ryan standing in the echo of a realization that had been waiting 7 years to land. The tea kettle whistled softly. Evelyn turned off the burner and poured the water over a chamomile bag, her movements slow and precise. Steam curled upward like breath in winter. Ashley stood across the island, arms folded, bare feet planted like she was bracing for a hurricane or trying to start one. "So," Ashley said, voice tight, "are you going to tell us what the hell is going on?" Evelyn stirred her tea without looking up. "I imagine you already have a few theories." "I found the folder," Ashley snapped. "Transition? What exactly are we transitioning to, Evelyn?" Ryan entered the kitchen then, half-dressed, phone still in his hand. Ashley said, he stopped mid-sentence when he saw his mother's face. Calm, unreadable. Ashley didn't wait. "She's selling the house, Ryan. That's what your mom's up to." Evelyn raised the teacup to her lips, blew gently, sipped. "Closing's in 3 weeks." Silence. Ryan blinked as though translating a language he no longer recognized. "Wait, what?" Ashley threw her arms up. "Told you." He turned to Evelyn. "Mom, you can't just... You're really selling it?" Evelyn set the cup down, centered it on the saucer. "Yes." "Without telling us?" Ashley's voice went sharp, ragged. "After everything we've done for you? Evelyn tilted her head slightly. Everything you've done for me? Ashley advanced a step. This is betrayal. You're going behind our backs. I lived in the guest room, Evelyn interrupted softly, of my own house. Ryan started to speak again, but Evelyn cut him off with a glance so swift it felt surgical. I gave you shelter when you had none. I owed you that. I did not owe you silence. Ashley scoffed, furious. You're punishing us. No. Evelyn took another sip. I'm choosing peace. That's not the same thing. In the doorway, Jenna hovered with a cereal bowl in her hands. Her eyes darted between them, unsure if she should speak or disappear. Grandma? She said hesitantly. Evelyn turned, and the hardness in her face softened. This isn't about you, sweetheart, she said gently. None of it is. Jenna looked at her parents, then back at Evelyn. She nodded once and quietly slipped away. Ashley let out a low, bitter laugh. You've been planning this behind our backs like some cold, calculating adult, Evelyn finished for her. A capable one. You're being spiteful. I'm being self-preserving. Ryan rubbed his temples, finally speaking. You should have told me, Mom. I thought we were in this together. Evelyn studied him. Not coldly, just honestly. You haven't thought about me in a long time, Ryan. You've thought about needing me. Ashley opened her mouth again, but Evelyn raised a hand, calm and precise. I'm not asking for understanding. I'm informing you. You'll need to find other housing before the 28th. That's not enough time, Ashley cried. We have a life here. No, Evelyn said, her voice barely above a whisper. You had comfort here. You confused it for permanence. Outside, a lawnmower started up, mundane, distant, indifferent. Inside, the silence stretched and bent like glass under pressure. Ashley looked like she might cry or scream or both. Ryan looked like he wanted to vanish into the floor. Evelyn lifted her tea again. Don't worry, she said lightly. I've arranged everything. You won't need to deal with the buyers. She left the kitchen without waiting for a reply. Back in her room, Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the blank wall ahead of her. Her hands trembled once, briefly, then stilled. She'd open the door. The rest would follow. The young couple stood at the end of the driveway, holding hands like they hadn't unlearned intimacy yet. Evelyn watched them from the porch, mug in hand, cardigan loose around her shoulders. The woman wore a navy dress dotted with tiny lemons, the man a chambray shirt and khakis that looked too new to be accidental. They smiled when they saw her, eager, uncertain. Hi there, the woman said first. You must be Evelyn? I am, she replied. You must be the Grants. Yes, the man added, stepping forward. I'm Evan, and this is Danny. Thanks for meeting us today. Of course, Evelyn said, pushing open the screen door. Come in, take your time. They walked inside with hushed reverence like the house was already half memory. Evelyn led them through each room, sunroom, kitchen, the back hallway that still smelled faintly of lemon polish and old photo paper. Danny touched the window frame in the dining room. The light in here, it's beautiful. It's warmer in the mornings, Evelyn said quietly. My granddaughter used to do puzzles here. Evan peeked into the hall closet. We're hoping to start a family soon, he said almost shyly. This place, it feels right. Evelyn nodded. She should have felt bitterness, even jealousy at their beginning. Instead, she felt clean, empty in a way that wasn't hollow, just finally done. They finished the tour and sat in the living room. The Grants asked questions about roofing, the heater, where the best takeout was. Evelyn answered them with the calm of someone who no longer had a stake in any of it. The realtor, Diane, arrived 20 minutes later with the contracts, her voice warm but efficient. We'll fast-track the paperwork, she said after the couple left, smiling as she flipped through the folder. They're ready to move. I'd say we can close a week early. Evelyn glanced down at the forms. Good. Diane paused. You sure you're ready? I was ready before I ever said it out loud, Evelyn replied. Later that night, she packed the last of her things. Her closet was already bare, save for a zipped garment bag and a shoebox marked Keep. In the guest room turned packing zone, cardboard towers leaned in uneven rows like dominoes waiting for a breeze. She moved through the motions methodically. a vase wrapped in towels, her journals sealed with twine, a final check of the bedside drawer, just a lavender sachet and a lip balm. In the living room, she stood alone and looked around one last time. No photographs, no tokens, no trace of the woman who'd spent years tiptoeing between her own generosity and her family's entitlement. Evelyn took out a thick, cream-colored envelope and slid it onto the kitchen counter. Inside, a handwritten letter on linen paper. To the new owners. This house has held pain, yes, but also warmth and laughter, and the best soup you'll ever make in a yellow Dutch oven. May your time here be better. May you love without condition and speak with respect. Welcome home. Evelyn Grace Carter. She placed it beside the drawer key and stepped back. At 6:42 p.m., she called the movers and confirmed her pickup, Sunday 5:30 a.m. sharp. No driveway access, use the curb, she added. I'll be ready. Then she pulled up the contract file, clicked print later, and scheduled it for 5 p.m. Friday, the exact moment dinner would begin. A soft click confirmed the task, a tiny red dot on her calendar. Nothing dramatic, but Evelyn smiled to herself anyway. Some alarms don't need to blare, they just need to land. The second birthday dinner looked almost identical to the first. Same table, same farmhouse lights, same cloth napkins, though this time folded into more elaborate fans, Ashley's idea of elevated presentation. The difference was in the tone. Everyone was trying too hard. Ashley floated around the room like a gracious hostess in a lifestyle segment, complimenting Jenna's dress, asking one of Ryan's co-workers if the chicken was moist enough. Her voice pitched higher than usual, smile too wide. A brittle mask worn for optics. Evelyn sat at the head of the table, her old place, reinstated. Out of respect, Ashley had chirped. Jenna sat beside her again, legs crossed at the ankle, nervously tapping her fork against her plate. Ryan clinked his glass. Let's keep it short and sweet tonight, huh? To Mom, strong as ever. Happy birthday. Polite applause followed. Evelyn nodded, offering a closed-lip smile. No speech, no flourish, just another ritual endured. Dinner droned on, roast chicken, garlic potatoes, some sad-looking asparagus. Evelyn barely touched hers. Ashley did most of the talking, filling silences, narrating everyone's. Laughter before it happened. Then came dessert. A cake with better frosting than last time. German chocolate, your favorite, right? Ashley beamed, already slicing. We wanted to do better this year. For everything you've done. Evelyn waited until the slices were passed out and the plates settled. Then she stood. No clinking glass, no raised voice, just motion, deliberate and clear. I have a gift, she said. Everyone quieted. From her purse, Evelyn pulled out a thick, cream-colored envelope. She held it like an object of ceremony, steady, poised. For you, Ashley. Ashley blinked. For me? Yes. Evelyn walked it over, set it gently by Ashley's plate, just left of the dessert fork. Ashley opened it with theatrical curiosity, fingers peeling back the flap slowly, clearly expecting a handwritten note or perhaps some vintage jewelry. She pulled out the contract. Pages thick, crisp, stamped. At first, she didn't register it. Her eyes flicked across the front page, brows knitting. Then they widened. This is the finalized sale contract, Evelyn said, still standing. The house closes next Friday. Jenna stopped mid-bite. Ryan sat up straighter. The air sucked itself out of the room. Ashley let out a stunned half-laugh. You're giving me the contract? No. Evelyn said, voice even. I'm giving you notice. Ashley's smile broke, not all at once, but in pieces. You said we had 3 weeks. That was a courtesy, Evelyn replied. The buyers wanted sooner. I agreed. Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it again. Ashley stood abruptly. So you brought us all here just to humiliate us? No, Evelyn said calmly, stepping back from the table. I came to say goodbye. And to give Jenna something, too. Everyone turned. Evelyn looked directly at her granddaughter. Check under your seat, sweetheart. Jenna hesitated, then reached beneath her chair. She pulled out a small padded envelope with her name scrawled in black marker. She opened it slowly, pulling out a single sheet. A lease. 6 months. A small apartment. Walking distance to the college Jenna had been eyeing. Prepaid in full. Jenna gasped softly. "Grandma, what is this?" Evelyn smiled. "It's yours. A head start. A place of your own." Ashley's voice cracked. "You went behind our backs and—" "I didn't go behind," Evelyn said. "I went forward." She turned to Jenna and gave her hand a squeeze. "You're not part of their mistakes. I want you to know what freedom feels like before it's taken." Jenna looked stunned. And then, quietly, grateful, Evelyn picked up her purse. "I no longer live where I'm not respected." With that, she walked out. No hugs, no cake, no backward glance. Behind her, silence. And on the kitchen counter, the envelope, gaping open, sharp as a blade. The morning air was still bruised with night when Evelyn slipped out the front door. She didn't linger on the porch, no long glance at the wind chimes or the sagging hanging fern, no pause at the welcome mat she hadn't chosen. Just one step, then another, suitcase wheels murmuring behind her on the pavement like an afterthought. She didn't leave a note. Not for Ryan. Not for Ashley. Not even for Jenna. Though her heart ached briefly at that. The house was no longer hers. Her love, what had remained of it, had been packed, transferred, and prepaid. The moving truck idled at the curb, low rumble vibrating in the cool morning hush. Diane stood beside it, holding a clipboard, dressed in jeans and a blazer that didn't match, but somehow worked. "You're early," Evelyn said. Diane smiled. "So are you." They exchanged no sentiment. Evelyn handed over the envelope with the final keys and alarm codes. No hugs, just a clean exchange. The movers worked quickly, like men who knew better than to ask questions. Boxes disappeared into the truck's belly with quiet thuds. The house stood behind them like a stunned bystander, silent, beige, irrelevant now. Evelyn reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope for each mover, tipping them with crisp bills and a thank you that didn't overreach. By 6:08 a.m., the curb was empty. By 6:15, so was she. Her car eased down the neighborhood road, past rows of identical mailboxes and manicured hedges that had once represented safety. She didn't look in the rearview mirror, not once. As the sun pushed its way over the horizon, the streets widened. Traffic picked up. Somewhere past exit 83, her fingers loosened on the wheel. The tears never came. Not because she didn't feel, but because she finally could. For a long stretch of highway, she let her mind wander, not to the future, but to the before. She saw Ryan at 5, dragging a half-zipped backpack through the kitchen, demanding chocolate milk and asking if it was okay to miss his dad that day. She saw herself working doubles, falling asleep in the car in scrubs still damp from someone else's grief. She remembered patching up Ryan's first bloody nose after a baseball game, the way he clung to her then, terrified, trusting. She remembered saying no to vacations, yes to tutoring, and quieting her own dreams like they were fires in rooms she no longer entered. But then came the shift. Gradual. A hand always out, never offering. He stopped thanking her. Then he stopped asking. And then one day, she woke up as someone's afterthought. Now, the coast came into view, silver gray waves rolling beneath a pale sky. Evelyn pulled into a small gravel lot, stepped out, and inhaled the salt air like it was medicine. The apartment wasn't glamorous, 2 floors above a hardware store with a cracked mailbox and peeling blue shutters, but it was hers. The key turned without protest. Inside, hardwood floors, white walls, a tiny breakfast nook that caught the morning sun just so. The windows faced the water. A shelf already waited for her books. A yellow Dutch oven sat in the kitchen, waiting to earn its story. She set down her keys. Later, she registered her new P.O. box, changed her cell number, declined to list an emergency contact, no forwarding address. That night, she unpacked one box. Just one. It held her favorite mug, a throw blanket, and her journals. She placed them with reverence, like relics of someone who had survived a life she no longer belonged to. The silence was startling at first, but it was hers. She made tea and stood by the window. Somewhere out there, Ryan was waking up to an empty house and a full consequence. Somewhere, Ashley was tearing through kitchen drawers, trying to rewrite a narrative that had already closed. Evelyn sipped. The ocean moved like breath. Ryan woke to the sound of Ashley slamming cabinet doors. He blinked at the unfamiliar quiet. No footsteps above, no kettle whistling, no gentle knock asking if they needed anything from the store. Just silence, wide and accusatory. He sat up and squinted at his phone. 4 missed calls from the bank, 1 from the utility company. Ashley burst into the room, barefoot and furious. "Everything's shut off," she said. "The gas, the power auto-pay, gone." Ryan rubbed his eyes. "What do you mean gone?" "I mean," she snapped, tossing a red notice onto the bed. "The checking account is empty, 0, and my card got declined at the co-op this morning." He opened the banking app, fingers sluggish. Password error, tried again, locked out. Ashley paced. "And my HR rep asked me if I'm okay." Like, with the pause in the eyebrow, "Someone's been talking." Ryan sat up straighter. "Did you tell your coworkers about Evelyn?" "I said we had a situation, I didn't say she'd gutted us." Ryan stood, pulling on yesterday's jeans. "She wouldn't do that." Ashley wheeled on him. "Really?" "Because she did. She drained the joint account. Everything she co-signed is now blocked or frozen. The car, the second credit line, she removed her name." He looked at her, but it was like looking through dirty glass. "She wouldn't just cut me off." "She didn't," Ashley said, seething. "She cut us off." Downstairs, the kitchen sat stripped. No magnets on the fridge, no sticky notes, no Evelyn quietly wiping the counter after everyone else had already gone to bed. The table was still set from the night before, but it looked abandoned. A room emptied of context. Ashley picked up the phone and hit redial. Voicemail. Again. "I swear to God I'm going to get a lawyer," she muttered. "This has to be financial elder abuse or something." Ryan opened his laptop and searched, "Evelyn Carter, deed trustee." Nothing came up. He tried her number. Disconnected? Email? Bounce back. He called her attorney's office. "Linda Reyes, Esquire." A calm male voice answered, "Per client directive, all correspondence must be made through verified legal counsel. Thank you, click." He stared at the phone like it had betrayed him. In the other room, Ashley cursed as she tried to pay the electric bill. "She took her name off the house months ago. I found the filing date. It's in a trust now. Untouchable." Ryan's stomach turned. "So we're squatters, basically." He sank into the chair at the kitchen island, fingers laced behind his neck. The fridge buzzed. The silence behind it was worse. Ashley marched back in, holding up a stack of crumpled receipts. "You told me she said we had time." "She did." His voice cracked. "She said 3 weeks." "And you believed her?" Her voice wasn't angry now, just hollow. "You didn't even ask about the deed, Ryan." He couldn't speak, because she was right. His phone buzzed, a text. From Jenna. "I'm okay. Don't worry about me. Grandma's safe. Let her be. Just that. Nothing else. No, love you. No, call me." He stared at the message, reread it 4 times, then shut off the screen. Ashley slumped against the counter. "We're not going to make rent without her help." He didn't answer. She glanced up at him. "What do we do now?" Ryan sat in the silence, the weight of every unpaid bill, every ignored kindness, every taken-for-granted moment tightening around his throat. He opened his bank app again. The account balance blinked. $0, 0 cents, no pending deposits, no overdraft, no Evelyn. Ryan sat across from the real estate attorney with a sheen of sweat darkening his collar. The office smelled like coffee and toner. Neutral, impersonal. Everything about it screamed, "You're too late." "I want to contest the sale," Ryan said, voice cracking halfway through. The attorney flipped through the documents Evelyn had filed. Quietly, efficiently. "You weren't a co-owner," he said not unkindly. "There's no signature from you. No stake, no lien, no legal tie to the deed." "But I lived there," Ryan argued, leaning forward, "for almost 8 years. "That may be," the man said, "but it doesn't change ownership. At best, you were a tenant without a lease." Ryan slumped back, his jaw clenched. The lawyer folded his hands. Whoever advised your mother knew what they were doing. The trust is airtight, irrevocable, and the sale was conducted entirely within her rights. Ryan barely heard him. A buzzing had started in his ears, a static hum of disbelief wrapped in shame. That night, Ashley was already 3 glasses into a bottle of wine when he came home. "Anything?" she asked, eyes bloodshot but expectant. He shook his head. "No standing?" Ashley scoffed, slamming her glass down. "That woman lived under our roof. She ate our food." Ryan didn't bother correcting her. She opened her laptop and began typing furiously. "Fine, then we go public. There's gotta be a lawyer who'll take this on. Emotional damages, fraud, something." "She didn't commit fraud," Ryan muttered. Ashley ignored him, clicking through local legal aid sites, half drunk and grasping. The next morning, she called a firm out of state, pretending to be inquiring on behalf of a wronged elder. By noon, she was told, again, there was nothing to be done. "No standing," they said. "And frankly, it sounds like your mother-in-law made a smart move." Ashley screamed into a towel. Meanwhile, the world around them began to whisper. At the grocery store, an old friend of Evelyn's asked Ryan, "Heard your mom finally found her wings. Good for her." At Jenna's school, a parent with a tight smile said, "You must be so proud of your mom. That elder rights piece was, wow." Ryan blinked. "What piece?" The newsletter had been forwarded from Evelyn's former colleague, a nurse named Peggy. It was tucked between articles on Medicare fraud and assisted living reviews, a small but potent spotlight. One woman's quiet exit. How Evelyn Carter rewrote her story after 40 years of invisible care. "No one noticed until I left," she said. "That's how I knew it was time." Attached was a photo. Evelyn standing by the ocean, hair windswept, face soft but firm. Ashley read it over his shoulder. "She's making herself a martyr." "She's not wrong," Ryan murmured. Ashley spun. "Don't you dare take her side." "I'm not." He closed the laptop. "I'm just saying, maybe we did this to ourselves." A silence settled. Ryan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out slowly, already bracing. "Jenna, can I call?" He stepped into the hallway, heart hammering. "Hi," he said, voice catching. There was a pause. Then Jenna's voice, fragile and firm all at once. "I just wanted to say, I'm proud of her." Ryan closed his eyes. "I know. You never saw her," she said, "even when she was right in front of you." He opened his mouth, then shut it, because there was no argument worth making. Jenna sniffled. "She told me not to take sides. But I'm not. I'm just taking care of myself, like she taught me to." "Jenna, I have to go. I just thought you should know. She's okay." Click. Ryan stood in the hallway, surrounded by walls he no longer owned, in a house full of things he couldn't keep. Later that week, a letter arrived in the mail addressed to E. Carter, a print copy of the newsletter, a post-it stuck to the cover in neat handwriting. "You're not alone. We see you. Want to help us speak louder?" The bottom listed an organization, Coalition for Elder Autonomy, State Campaign, 2025. The morning breeze rolled off the ocean in soft pulses, stirring the hem of Evelyn's robe as she watered the rosemary plant on her narrow balcony. Salt air, quiet. No voices calling for help, no footsteps overhead. Just the steady drip of water into terracotta and the faint whistle of gulls on the roofline. Her phone buzzed on the windowsill. "Diane." She answered without pleasantries. "You're up early." "So are you," Diane replied. "Got a Google alert ping. You might want to see it." Evelyn waited. "Your son's trying to frame the story. Blog post on Medium. Says he's raising awareness about housing displacement among adult children caring for aging parents." Evelyn closed her eyes. "Of course he is." "Wants to be interviewed, claims you manipulated the system. Phrases like betrayal and senior confusion are doing some heavy lifting." Evelyn walked back inside, slow and unbothered. "Let him talk. People like him always think, like, the last word is the one that counts." Diane chuckled. "You're not going to respond?" "No." Evelyn poured herself coffee. I traded noise for peace. I'm not going back. That afternoon, a knock came at her door. When she opened it, Jenna stood there, a tote bag over one shoulder, a hopeful half-smile on her face. I called first, she said quickly. You didn't answer, but… Evelyn opened the door wider. Come in. Jenna stepped into the small, sunlit apartment and looked around as if trying to memorize the color of the air. It's quiet, she said. That's the point, Evelyn replied. They sat at the tiny kitchen table. Evelyn poured tea this time, and Jenna took it without sugar, just like she used to when they baked together in quieter days. I've been thinking a lot, Jenna said. About everything. Evelyn said nothing, just waited. I used to think Mom was just stressed, that Dad was just tired, that the way they treated you was normal. Jenna looked down at her mug, but it wasn't. I see that now. Evelyn reached across the table, placed a hand gently on Jenna's. You were a child. Children normalize what they're handed. But I'm not anymore, Jenna said, and I don't want to become them. A long silence. Then Jenna added, I want to start fresh. With you, if you'll let me. Evelyn nodded once, firmly. I already have. They spent the afternoon walking by the water, not talking much, just feeling the sun warm their faces. Before Jenna left, Evelyn pulled a slim blue folder from her bookshelf and handed it over. Inside was a document naming Jenna as the sole beneficiary of a modest education trust, one that would activate when she turned 18, with full financial and legal autonomy. Jenna blinked. This is… for me? You get to decide your future, sweetheart. No one else, not even me. Tears welled in Jenna's eyes. Thank you. Evelyn smiled. Just promise me one thing. Jenna sniffled. Anything. When it's your turn to build a life, make sure the doors open inward. That evening, Evelyn returned to her desk, logged into the mentorship board for retired nurses, and scanned the messages from students needing guidance. She selected 3. A woman re-entering the workforce after a divorce, a young man failing anatomy, and a second-year nurse burnt out by her first code blue. Evelyn drafted replies like care plans, concise, empathetic, forward-facing. She did not check Ryan's blog. She did not answer the voicemails from Ashley's sister. She did not reply to the local paper's request for comment. Instead, she opened her email and confirmed her next step, a webinar series on caregiving boundaries hosted by the Coalition for Elder Autonomy. Her face would not be shown, but her words would. She closed the laptop and stood by the window as dusk painted the ocean in muted fire. Snow dusted the rooftops like powdered sugar, but inside the Carter house, warmth never fully arrived. Ryan stood beside the mantel, adjusting the crooked garland for the 3rd time. It wouldn't sit right, just like everything else. The tree blinked unevenly in the corner, blinking out of sync with the room's tension. Ashley floated through the living room in a red cashmere cardigan and forced cheer, offering lukewarm cider in Santa mugs that still smelled faintly of cabinet wood. The house echoed with the absence of background chatter. No Evelyn humming over pies, no soft footsteps behind the scenes, no Jenna, who had politely declined the invitation with a vague excuse about early campus prep. Only 2 guests had come, one of Ryan's coworkers and Ashley's friend from Pilates, both clearly eager to leave by the time dessert arrived. The dining room, once overfilled, now felt like a theater set that forgot its actors. After they left, Ashley stood by the window, watching their taillights disappear. This used to be a full house, she said without turning around. We used to matter. Ryan sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on knees. Maybe it was never full. Maybe it just felt louder. Ashley's eyes narrowed. You mean before your mother started rewriting history? He didn't answer. The silence was answer enough. Up the coast, 2 hours away, Evelyn ladled soup into mismatched ceramic bowls, her hands moving with the ease of long-earned habit. The community shelter was warm with the scent of cinnamon, cloves, and roasted squash, folding tables lined with thrifted tablecloths, a fake fireplace projected on the wall. People gathered not because they had to, but because here they were fed with care, not guilt. A girl in a patched coat handed Evelyn a drawing, a stick figure in front of a big sun. "This is you," the girl said. "You made it warm." Evelyn blinked once, then smiled. "That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all year." She hung the drawing on the bulletin board beside the door before returning to the soup pot, her heart unusually light. Later that evening, after walking home through salted sidewalks and early stars, she opened her mailbox and found a thick envelope from Jenna. Inside, a stack of printed photos, campus buildings, dorm room views, a candid selfie of Jenna holding a whiteboard that read, "Application submitted." A post-it was stuck to the top. "Thought you'd like to see where I'm going. Love you." Evelyn sat at the table, slowly laying the photos out like a timeline, each one a breadcrumb pointing toward Jenna's freedom. She pulled out a small gift box from the pantry, lined it with tissue paper, and began filling it gently. A copy of How to Boil Everything, a half-used cinnamon stick bundle, use the rest wisely, her handwritten biscuit recipe, annotated with 3 smiley faces and a note, "Don't overmix," and a pair of socks she'd been saving for no one in particular, until now. She sealed it with tape and a label, "To J. Carter, your next chapter." That night, Evelyn walked it to the blue mailbox at the corner. She stood there for a moment before letting the box slip in. The clunk was satisfying, final. Back at home, she made a cup of peppermint tea and settled under her blanket, listening to the wind. On her phone, she opened Instagram just once, not to post, but to peek. Ashley's newest photo, a dimly lit dinner table with 2 empty wine glasses, the caption sharp-edged and sugary. "It's wild how some people forget the meaning of family, but we keep showing up." Tradition, grace under fire. Evelyn didn't screenshot it, didn't respond, didn't care. She turned her phone over, screen down, and smiled at the drawing still pinned to her fridge. A stick figure beneath a sun. The first call came on a rainy Tuesday. Evelyn almost didn't answer. "Ms. Carter?" the voice asked. "I'm Claire Nolan. I write for Pacific Living, the human interest column. I read about your story through the Coalition's newsletter. We'd like to do a quiet piece. No photos, no sensationalism, just your voice. On boundaries. On dignity." Evelyn paused, her hand tightening slightly around the phone. "I don't want to become a symbol," she said. "You wouldn't," Claire replied. "You'd be a mirror." A week later, Evelyn sat in her living room, a cup of tea cooling beside her, speaking into a small digital recorder, while Claire asked questions that didn't prod, didn't pity, just listened. "How did you know it was time to go?" "When they joked about feeding me out of guilt," Evelyn said softly, and no one flinched. The article was published online 3 weeks later. A quiet headline, "The Soft Exit." When a caregiver reclaims her life, no drama, no venom, just truth, lined with steadiness. For 2 days, it sat largely unnoticed, a niche piece in the slower corner of the internet. Then it hit a nerve. A retired nurse in Ohio reposted it, then a women's rights attorney in Vermont. Then a therapist on TikTok read a quote aloud and called it, "The softest revolution I've ever seen." Within days, the article had 250,000 shares. A week later, it crossed 1 million. The email inbox Evelyn used for mentoring filled with subject lines like, "Thank you and you said what I couldn't, and my daughter forwarded me your piece." I cried at work. Some sent paragraphs, some sent a single sentence. One message simply said, "You reminded me I don't have to earn my place to keep it." Evelyn responded to each one, slowly, by hand. She printed the messages, wrote her replies, and mailed them from the blue box at the corner, same as she had with Jenna's package. Not everyone was pleased. Ashley's manager pulled her aside on a Thursday afternoon. "We've received a few inquiries," the HR rep said, eyes neutral but pointed. "Your name has come up in some discussion threads tied to elder neglect commentary from a past presentation. We're not making a statement yet, but we are reviewing your previous remarks." Ashley went pale. That story was twisted. I was the one caring for her. "Your mother-in-law," the HR rep corrected gently. Ashley spent the rest of the day in the break room, refreshing comment threads and reading what strangers thought of her villain cautionary tale entitled "Daughter-in-Law." Ryan, for his part, said nothing publicly. His Medium blog quietly vanished. his social media accounts deactivated one by one. A neighbor reported seeing him grocery shopping in sunglasses, hunched low over a cart of boxed mac and cheese. Evelyn, meanwhile, kept baking. She brought muffins to the shelter on Tuesdays, wrote notes to young nurses on Thursdays, each envelope sealed with a gold sticker and a message, "You are not invisible." Then the letters started arriving, real ones, ink and stamps. Some were clumsy, some poetic, many heartbreaking. One from a retired librarian in Arizona. "You saved me from signing my house over to someone who loved my utility bill more than me." Another from a woman in Michigan. "I'd forgotten what strength sounded like." Yours rang clear. Evelyn placed them in a basket near the window, beneath the drawing from the girl at the shelter. Diane called and said, "I hope you know what you've done." "I don't," Evelyn said honestly. "You cracked something open." That night, Evelyn received one final envelope, thicker, formal. Inside, a speaking invitation from the State Council on Aging, not to talk about her experience, to help shape policy. The letter ended with, "Your clarity carries weight. Let it guide others." Evelyn stared at it for a long time, then folded it closed and set it beside her tea. The wind rolled in off the water, low and constant, a kind of hush the sea kept just for morning walkers. Evelyn stepped through the dune grass onto the narrow stretch of beach, her coat wrapped loose, the sand cool through her soles. She didn't walk for fitness, she walked for memory. Ahead, a cluster of rocks still bore faint streaks of wax from someone's long-expired birthday candles, likely teenagers, probably careless. But Evelyn paused anyway, closed her eyes. She remembered birthdays that didn't come with forced toasts or performative casseroles, the good ones, the small ones. A carrot cake with too much frosting, eaten at the kitchen counter with Ryan in 3rd grade, both of them in paper hats. A cup of vending machine hot chocolate at the hospital, with her friend Anna humming "Happy Birthday" under her breath while they waited out a code blue. One year, she bought herself a new pair of wool socks and wore them all day with a robe and no apologies. They weren't showy, but they were real. She smiled, kept walking. Back at the apartment, a box waited on her stoop. Soil, rosemary, lavender, a delivery she had meant to cancel and never did. She carried it inside, then turned right around and brought it back out. By noon, her porch steps smelled like summer and memory. Lavender for calm, rosemary for her mother. She knelt with care, thumbed the earth loose, and pressed the roots down gently. No ceremony, just dirt under her nails and wind on her cheeks. That afternoon, Diane arrived, holding a bottle of sparkling apple cider and a paper bag that smelled like bakery butter. "You didn't have to," Evelyn began. "Shut up and toast with me," Diane said, already uncorking. They sat in the small breakfast nook with mismatched glasses and sourdough that steamed when broken open. Diane raised her glass. "To justice," she said. Evelyn tapped hers gently. "To freedom that doesn't shout." They drank, then sat in silence, watching gulls strut across the rooftop like gossiping old men. After Diane left, Evelyn pulled out her laptop and opened a folder labeled "Legal." She skimmed the contents, made one final revision to her will, 100% to educational access and shelter programs for women over 50. No caveats, no names. She clicked save, backed it up twice, closed the lid. The next day, a large envelope arrived from Jenna. No photos this time, just her first college application essay. It was printed on thick paper and titled in simple type, "Soft Armor." Evelyn read it slowly, breath catching at the lines that felt like mirrors. She never raised her voice, but she never lowered her worth either. "I used to think strength meant sharpness. Now I know it can sound like a drawer closing, like tea being poured, like a door being locked from the inside, for the last time." Evelyn folded the essay shut, pressed it to her chest for a beat, then set it beside her journals. That night, she opened the last one. The leather was soft at the edges, the ribbon bookmark frayed. She read through old entries, splinters of years where she questioned, compromised, warned herself in writing. Days when she clung to civility like it was virtue, even as it hollowed her out. The last entry, dated 1 week before she left, read simply, They'll never understand what it cost to stay quiet. But I do. And that's enough. She closed the journal slowly, then wrapped a ribbon around the full stack. Tied it. No ceremony. No speech. Just the closing of a chapter written entirely in her own hand. The memoir wasn't flashy. No author photo on the back cover. No embossed lettering. Just a soft matte jacket, deep slate blue, with a title barely louder than a whisper. Still Here. Notes on Leaving Quietly. It appeared on shelves in late spring, tucked beside grief handbooks and aging guides, but word traveled differently now, passed from hand to hand, screen to screen, until it found the people who needed it. Jenna found her copy at the college bookstore, shelved under Memoir, with a yellow sticker labeled Required Reading. She bought it without telling anyone. Read it in bed, knees pulled tight, a pencil in her hand for underlining. By the second chapter, she wasn't marking lines anymore, just holding the pages, afraid they'd vanish. Evelyn's voice lived in every word. I used to think survival meant shrinking. Then I left, and I realized space is not the enemy. It's the evidence. Jenna closed the book at midnight, face wet, heart clearer than it had ever been. She didn't text, didn't call. She just sat with it, with her grandmother's voice, her grandmother's truth, and let the echo carry her. Across the coast, Evelyn didn't celebrate launch day. She didn't track sales or read the reviews. Her copy sat on the shelf, nestled between a gardening manual and a binder of old recipes. She didn't need to hold it. She'd already lived it. She didn't buy another home, though offers came. Board members, colleagues, one woman who'd offered to co-sign on a tiny cottage with a view of the harbor, but Evelyn declined gently. "I like rented light," she said. "It's less possessive." She kept her apartment, its narrow porch, its mismatched chairs, its shelves that creaked when the heat kicked in. Freedom, she'd learned, didn't need square footage. It needed air. One afternoon, she opened the mail to find a letter from someone she hadn't heard from in years. Emily, her sister's daughter, once a shy girl who cried at weddings and refused to eat foods that touched. Inside, just one page, handwritten. "Aunt Evelyn, I heard about the book through someone at my recovery group. It stopped me cold, not because I knew you wrote it, but because I didn't. And I should have. I should have known you carried something this brave inside you. You reminded me I matter. And I wanted you to know. Love." Emily Evelyn held the letter for a long time. No tears. Just gravity. She added it to the basket by the window, the one filled with other letters. People she'd never met, people who thought they were alone until her story met them in the dark. Later, she sat by the window with a cup of cinnamon tea. The seabirds wheeled overhead, thin white arcs slicing the sky. From this angle, they looked like commas in a sentence that hadn't ended yet. Across the room, a framed photo rested quietly on the bookcase. Evelyn by the sea, eyes closed, wind tugging at her scarf. Beneath it, a quote in soft serif type, "Not loud, but lasting." The sun dropped lower, light painting the apartment in long gold strokes. Evelyn took a sip of tea. She didn't hear the neighbors arguing upstairs. She didn't wonder if Ryan had seen the book. She didn't check for mentions online. Instead, she thought of Jenna's last postcard, taped to the fridge. A drawing of a dorm room window and a single lavender plant in the sun. She thought of the girl at the shelter, of Diane's toast, of letters sealed with trembling hands. She thought of her journals, tied and boxed and stored, yes, but not hidden. She thought of the word legacy and how no one could define it for her again. Evelyn smiled. "They fed me out of guilt. Now I feed others from grace."